Hi, and welcome back to the second half of the lecture for Monday's reading. The last video was about how third-party candidates are systematically excluded from participating in televised debates. The previous one was written by Raskin. Televised debates are important because they can affect the outcome of an election, and they do this for a couple of reasons. They make candidates known to audiences, and this is the reason third-party exclusion creates a really huge bias. And also they can convince audiences that certain candidates are likable and competent, and Shenkman is the one who talks about these factors. The editor of the book had 3 guiding questions for Shenkman's reading as well. First, what personality trait does the winner of presidential debates usually possess? Second, what mistake during the 1976 presidential debate cost Gerald Ford the election? And what response hurt Michael Dukakis in the 1988 debate as cited by Shenkman? I do want to apologize for the many readings that talk about Michael Dukakis being asked what he would do if his wife was sexually assaulted. There should be a content warning on some of these readings, but there isn't. It's part of rhetorical lore that Dukakis really lost the election because of the way he responded to that question, though, and that's why it keeps coming up. So, as for the first guiding question, what personality trait does the winner of presidential debates usually possess? Usually, they're good on TV. That's what it boils down to, and Shenkman talks about this in terms of a couple of different things. One is just seeming charismatic and likable. Another is seeming competent and hard to shake, so someone who isn't flustered on TV. So it has to do with confidence as well. It's poise, likability, good TV qualities. There are people who criticize the role of presidential debates in assessing only who's good on TV and not necessarily who is best suited to lead. But as Shenkman points out, someone who's likable on TV can amass a pretty loyal following or fans, and in order to lead in politics today, you do need that sort of base to support you. So people who are good on TV do well in debates. Here we go with the guiding questions. What mistake during the 1976 presidential debate cost Gerald Ford the election in the author's opinion and in the opinions of lots of people who diagnose the role of presidential debates? So Ford said that Poland wasn't under Soviet domination. This was a big mistake. And saying something that was that big of a mistake made people doubt his ability to lead. They started thinking about his age and his intelligence, and this got in the way of him winning the election. Here we go, the infamous Michael Dukakis thing. So a moderator asked Michael Dukakis if he would support the death penalty for someone who had sexually assaulted his wife. So in this hypothetical situation, would you want to kill the person who assaulted your wife? And Dukakis very coolly said, no, I would not support the death penalty. So this was an attempt to goad Dukakis into saying something hypocritical, or at least making him say something passionate. And there are a lot of ways he could have responded that would have been more appropriate if he'd been upset, if he'd said, even the person on the planet I would hate the most still wouldn't deserve the death penalty. If he'd said something like that, he could have recovered, but instead he was kind of Mr. Roboto, and this is why it's considered he lost that debate and did not have a chance at the election. So debates are weird, and some people say that they have more of an influence than they should have because they judge TV factors and not quality leadership. But this is true. We know this in other contexts that charisma matters a little bit more than aptitude in terms of choosing a leader. This isn't perhaps the way we want the world to work, but this is a thing that we can find evidence for in lots of different contexts. So I just want to talk a little bit about the 2016 election to fill out and update some of the stuff that we saw in this reading, which is from, I think, 2008. Approximately 2008. So in the 2016 election, we saw 2 pretty popular third-party candidates, one much more popular than the other, which is Gary Johnson, presidential candidate nominee of the Libertarian Party. And in the general election, he got 3% of the popular vote, which is still short of the 5% needed to get federal funding on future elections. And then Jill Stein represented the Green Party, which won 1% of the popular vote. So both of these candidates, they're the strongest third-party candidates we had in 2016, were constitutionally eligible, so they were older than 35, had lived in the U.S. for 14 years, and either were U.S. citizens because they were born here or because of one parent being a U.S. citizen. However, both failed to qualify for presidential debates because the 15% national polling threshold was not met in anticipation of the debates. So there are a lot of articles you can find online. I'm quoting one here from Reuters that talk about how Gary Johnson was boxed out, how the 15% polling threshold is unreasonable, and how Johnson had meaningful things to say that would have contributed to the debate. Now, there are reasons we could entertain about why Johnson was excluded. Some people would assume that a third-party candidate will steal the vote from someone else. Johnson, in my opinion, although not in a thing that I verified, was a popular choice for people who were conservative who did not want to vote for Trump, who's now president. So Johnson theoretically could have stolen the victory from Trump if Johnson had had a more powerful presence. However, both Clinton and Trump were really unpopular and really divisive characters, so it's unclear if including third-party candidates more seriously would have swung things one way or another. So here you can see their vote share and how dramatically the vote share rose between 2012 and 2016 for Johnson and Stein. This is an indication that both Trump and Clinton were very unpopular candidates, at least among some portion of the population who knew neither Johnson nor Stein would win, but went and voted for them anyway because they refused to vote for Trump or Clinton. There they are. There's Gary Johnson on the left and Jill Stein on the right. So going on to Shenkman's interventions about likability, or this X factor about being good on TV and how that affects elections. Most polls, distributed and interpreted by the mainstream national media, consider Donald Trump the person who did not win the debates. However, they were using these based on very traditional metrics of success, like in terms of traditional conceptions of accuracy and likability. Clinton was a much more traditional debater. She actually seemed like she had conventional debate background. And for that reason, she was considered the victor because she was good at answering questions but pivoting to her platform points. She was poised, etc. She was very trained. But in terms of charisma and TV X Factor, well, one of them's actually a reality TV star and the other one isn't. So perhaps because of Donald Trump's long history of appearing on television, he does have that TV quality that Shenkman was talking about, and that can't be measured in things that are more traditional, like good debate prep, unflappability, and seeming like a nice person to have a beer with, which Donald Trump is a teetotaler, so he's not a good person to have a beer with. And that's fine. That's a person's choice. In any case, I think Shenkman would have predicted Clinton to win the election based on her debate performance, but Donald Trump has star quality, which I think may be what Shenkman is talking about a little bit more than the accuracy and likability that he actually identifies in his article. So 2016 shook up some of what we thought we knew about the role of presidential debates, and yet I think we still need to consider seriously the click to add title. Oh, what a classy slide. We need to consider seriously the role that being good on TV plays in debates and what we should define that as if it's not likability and debate prep. So that's how 2016 updates the two readings. I hope that these make sense to you. Please come to me with any questions that you might have, and I will see some of you in our digital discussion groups. Tombo says goodbye too.